Hello.
Hey, what's going on? Uh, you guys got video?
Yeah, how come it didn't come up? It's weird.
Weird.
You don't need to see our face. You know who we are.
Well, I don't need to see you guys. I just ate some cheesecake.
Did you?
Oh, good for you.
Where do you get your cheesecake at that you like so much?
Oh, it's just that stuff you get at the store. It's kind of a in the frozen section. And it's these
Oh, okay.
smaller individual ones that I can just smash. I wasn't as hungry that, so sometimes I eat two of them. Um, but I wasn't as hungry tonight. So, oh.
Well, we'll just have to take him to the Cheesecake Factory.
You go to this cheesecake factory, don't you? I
Oh
thought you
yeah.
said you did.
Yeah, I've been there. I like there's a caramel cheesecake I like there.
We've
Caramel.
only been there once because it's pretty far. Well, I can't say it's far away, but it's not someplace we usually go.
Well, Oliver's Poorhouse.
Yeah, that's a good place.
No, that's a place.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the big cheesecake I talked about.
Okay. I like cupcakes too. There's a place called Gigi's Cupcakes. They got icing about that high on top of the cupcake.
Oh, wow.
Oh wow!
They just like you're eating icing, but I don't know why I like cupcakes so much. This guy from India is coming on. I just hope this is the guy that wants the money all the time. Like he's reached
Oh,
out
okay.
to me. So I mean I'll bring him on, but like I can't really help him with money. You're right there right now. If he wants to come on.
Yeah, I understand. It's a tough spot.
Uh, but I think what's his face? What's the guy? The old William.
William,
Yeah, he texted me last minute, said he wasn't gonna be able to make it for some reason. He just apologized. Uh, but it's not a big deal. You guys have a meeting next week for your company, right? Every second Tuesday of the month.
That for you, but
oh
that doesn't start
no,
until
that doesn't
fall.
start till September because um, we take a break for a few months during the summer.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, well, this will be good though. I don't know. I reached out to Tammy too separately, and she may or may not come on. I don't know. She seems there was a couple posts that she's made. I don't know who she follows and stuff, but there was something about Yeshua is not Jesus or something, and it's actually Satan. And she posted some of this stuff. So I was like,
I
Whoa!
saw some of that too.
I did not see this.
well, that's kind of like that's not cool, you know. I mean, as far as if you're posting that and
I like it mildly saying this is not cool. Okay.
yeah, I
I don't
mean,
know about you, but I would take task with that.
yeah, I just not sure how to bring it up with her. She's kind of wishy-washy on certain things too. I mean, I think a lot of the people that get involved with this, they don't understand the time that gets involved, and then they jump in it real quick, and then they stop, and then they come back. They're not consistent, and then what people like is they like to act like they think that they know what's going on or post stuff or send stuff. And then that's when Richard, he was always got on me for this, and I get it. I would send him certain articles, but we didn't have anything else that we were getting towards. So all we were doing was like, I mean, we were just stagnant. I'm like, I can't do this the rest of my life. You know what I'm saying? Like this, I have to be creating, like that guy says, a system, something that if you're not creating this to become your life, then it's not really working. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not like it needs to once you see it and show God that you're willing to you respond to what he's given you, he'll give you a little bit more to chew on until but that's what he wants to see. That's all I can say is he wants to see some faithfulness to get you a little bit more to handle. And that's all he wants to see. If you can't respond to some of the things he's given you, how's he going to give you any more? You know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying, and it's been hitting me in the head almost daily, and it's just like, okay, I just need to jump out of my skin and do it.
Yeah.
It's no problem doing it one on one or be
Yeah.
in front of 200 people, but it's like, get on here and do what you're doing and just take the 2x4 across my head. Like, I wish you would do that sometime. I know you're being patient with me.
Nah, well, like I said, I mean, that's what you have to do sometimes is be patient and then all in good time. But I would say just practice within your own group because there's maybe not too many people watching or do something, or just like I said, I've had to try different things too to find out what works for me or what's worked or what's not. And sometimes I have to give something a break or try something different. For example, it's like I just think this isn't going to be your stereotypical way of going about things until maybe after people start seeing things because it's like certain things are bouncing off of ourselves, let alone just completely bouncing off other people. So it's like,
Um,
that'd be
I did
nice.
ask, I did ask you at one time, did it come naturally or was it a hard thing to acquire to do? Or were you just smooth at this the whole time?
No, I got when I went through my business coaching, I first practiced. My coach gave us assignments at night to talk to people within a group, not about this, but about nutrition or your life, little things that he gradually made you do and homework. But like he had a group of coaches that were already in that frame of mind to do it. They were already coaching people. So like they committed to do this stuff. It was like a $99 course for 3 weeks, 21-day type things called 21 Day Breakthrough. But that started us. And then I started posting more things and saw how people were responding. That's how he did it. Whether or not it still works or not that well, I don't know, but it's another way of getting it out there. And people are doing the everyone thing now. And then it's like I'm realizing this too. It's like in my mind, this needs to go around the world, but I think that God's going to see how faithful we are at the little things, and then maybe it doesn't go the way we would like it to or right away. But what I am seeing is what did God give us and gave us some entrepreneurs and gave us some thought process so that we can show people because these people aren't even responding. The least we can do is just show them that we're trying and God's going to bless our efforts. You know what I'm saying? And I've got some ideas and stuff to like attach, break through some of these blocks for people. But again, it's sad that it just doesn't come from the heart on some people because it's like, what are they, what are they hiding behind? Like, pastors have done a disservice by telling the people, they don't need to do anything. They're not showing people anything that the seriousness of this, they don't know anything. It's like, so you
Well, that's where I think some pastors do know,
could
but
be.
they just don't preach it.
Yeah, and that's why they're going to get smoked because it's like, you got a job. And I look at myself as more like an informant because it's like I kind of had to play both sides of the fence to even get something. Like God's sovereign. So like that's something that I've realized now is like God's sovereign. There's no God's ways are eternal, but he's sovereign too in what he chooses to do and whoever decides to act. It's like, you know, I'm just starting to learn how God works and also try to tie into some simple principles around people who I'm around when things are done, when things move on. Because if you stay in something longer than you should, then you're not going to get somewhere else. Everything serves a purpose, but God speaks in people in different ways too. So it's like, I don't, I don't know. It's just interesting, but I think the wake up's going to be something that helps people get on the same thought process because they're going to have some of the same situations hitting them the same way. So we'll be able to talk to people about what just happened instead of trying to talk to them about what's going to happen or what did happen. It's like what just happened, and maybe show them that what we've been doing. Hey, welcome to our world.
Right. I mean, I know that they are not going to be prepared, and
No,
they need to be guided, and yeah, they're going to see that everything's going to hit their wallet, and spiritually, they're just not there.
they're bankrupt. Yeah, the whole thing's bankrupt, and it's like I don't know. I'm just so happy that there's a way out. That God always gives an open door. I downloaded a video on TikTok of a guy explaining the tree of knowledge of good and evil. You know, it was really good. I might have to just send it to you guys to watch, but like God's always giving us a free will because otherwise we'd be trapped. I keep talking about people being backed in a corner. I think he does that, but I also think he gives you that door too to go through to get you where you need to be. But are you choosing it? You know, I don't know. It's just really weird how God works. But what I decided to do on this Zoom is one of the things I kept coming into, and that's what's weird about this whole thing is like you make a presentation, you make a course, you make this stuff, and you're like, as I'm growing, I'm like, man, maybe I didn't spend enough time on this. Maybe I understood it back here, but I didn't spend enough time on it, or something comes up. What are people not getting? Well, the SEALs, they're definitely not getting the SEALs because they're like, you know, how do you get this? And then they want to know, but then they don't want to go through. It's like, how do you spend the time with them right there and then on Facebook? I've got one of my posts saved that I talking to people about was something else, but it was good that I could show how I was interacting. But it's like people want to get to a certain point, then you offer them the school because it's like that's why if we had the coaching, if we had 10 or more people that knew or had opportunities, we could say, here, book a call, here's our schedule, book a call, and then get them to say, this is what I did, and then move them into action, because that's really what we want people to go. Like, we don't want people to just know stuff. We want them to turn around and eventually share it if they're capable of that, or at least get them from point A to point B. But for us, we do need that that community or that entryway into talking to people like this. Nobody's even responding to this. That's why I'm like, I've been doing a lot of study on the brain and the parietal cortex and all this stuff up here. That these are the things that like get people to pay attention, even though I wouldn't call that stuff new age. And I'm just trying to picture how people already have problems, let alone spiritually. If God really shut one of those things off to where they can see this, you know.
I understand what you're saying. You know, it's understanding how people think, their brain, how it works, and how they
Right.
respond to certain things. Like, yeah, if you offered pepperoni pizza, maybe they'd come.
Well, that's the thing is I'm thinking I don't want to I want to make sure it comes from the heart, but at the same time, is
Yeah.
there something that I'm missing that is a block that I could work through? One of my coaches, two basically coaches would be telling me two things. One is, Justin, you need money for your school, so maybe go this route over here because this isn't producing anything. But that doesn't make sense when this should work itself out. I shouldn't have to do 10 more steps to get, because then that means I will, but like, I wish I would have known this beforehand, you know, because honestly, I think it should just take care of itself. The other person would be like, Justin, you feed these people, you give them certain things, they got to show up, but then you might turn them into somebody that's wants to help fund the school, or wants to, and maybe once you feed them and give them, you know, that's kind of what people do anyway with some servicing and some teaching on other things, is like,
True.
give them some stuff, and then maybe you have this over here. I get it, but part of it is also showing up for what is, because what, you know, you don't want to, you know, what's the word? It's a catch 22, or you don't want to do a bait and switch type thing where you want to make sure that they get it with the right heart, that they're seeking, and they're not just seeking this other thing over here. You know what I'm saying? So it's a
Yeah,
really
it's
hard.
like they have to be earnestly here for God and not just, you know, an ulterior motive like, oh, I'll attend this to get this.
Yeah.
That's not right. I understand what you're driving at. It's like, and you know, we're here
Yeah.
because
Well,
we're sincerely interested.
yeah, and
Yeah,
you guys have an entrepreneur.
we're open to the Word of God and to understanding His workings.
Well, exactly, and that's what I'm starting to think at the moment is God. You know, you show up, you respond, and then God's like, okay, I'll give you more, and I'll give you another opportunity, and open up your mind to something else. A person like Richard already had things, you know, figured out, and he kind of stopped there. But what about the people like me who are 40 years old that are still living life and trying to figure all this stuff out and navigate? God's using me in certain ways because where my mind's at. not where somebody else is like done with life and I don't need to, you know what I'm saying? So I get it. But then it's like, okay, well then who do we reach and and then a lot of coaches would say, well, who's your prime candidate avatar? Well, I'm like everybody because everybody needs this, but maybe it's the pastors, but then the pastors aren't even responding. So I'm going crazy because this defies all of what we're trying to do here. And I'm like, what am I missing? Do you reach the pastors? Well, the pastors aren't giving anything. And do you reach somebody else? I mean, like, who's going to do this? And then it's like, this should be the Great Commission for everybody to like do. And if each one reached one, you wouldn't have a problem. So I'm just sitting here like, I'm going crazy.
If you had a presentation, and what would it be towards pastors? Which one?
Well, it'd have to be towards the ones that aren't the pre-trib. It'd have to be about the ones that are not even given the word, or like the pre-trib people, because it's like, man, if you're literally building on nothing, this scriptural, it's like I would think that they would need to be warned, but at the same time, it's like we've reached out to a lot of people, but they don't think they need anything.
No, but if I were to talk to a few pastors, one, two, bunch of them, which particular presentation would you suggest?
Yeah.
Like if I said, hey, sit down and check this one out, and I can answer questions with you on this.
Yeah, that's a tough one because most of the time people all they know is the pre-trib rapture, and they don't know anything about what we're even looking for, the seals. Like for example, Marquise and Nelson. Marquise doesn't even know or doesn't even believe the seals have opened. So it's like that's why they're having so much trouble grasping this stuff.
I know they have good presentations,
Yeah,
visuals and stuff. Yeah, but it's
general stuff.
Right, it's general stuff. It's like they know how to splash it out into the screen,
and then it stops.
They don't have the scripture backing it up.
You're exactly right. And they didn't respond back to that one. Yeah,
really?
they might be busy, but I was like, you guys, you couldn't answer it then. You're not going to answer it now. You don't have an answer. I'm thinking to myself, what are you going to do? Like, I'm just going to keep not poking them, but if something comes to my mind, or something needs to be said, because dude, you're leading a lot of people astray, whether you realize it or not.
Now, they haven't shut you down, have they?
No, but the thing is, I've actually sent Marquis, he's in my Facebook Messenger, just two little things to think about. He doesn't respond, and I can kind of tell from both those guys. It reminds me, I'm telling you, this is funny. It reminds me of when I go to apply for a gym, and I'm kind of like stocky and jacked up, kind of like the general manager. They get a little intimidated that like I look a certain way because I'm like, I'm trying to work for you in this position. I'm not trying to take your position. I don't really even want your position because I know where that leads. But it's like I get the same, I've had it. I get the same vibe from people in a higher up position. That's why I've never been able to work for anybody, not because I can't, because I'm a great worker, but because they have something against me. And it's like, okay, well, I'll just do it myself then. Or I'll work with a lady, or some over here that just doesn't care. So I guess my point is I get the same vibe from those guys at the thing. It's like it's like, hey, how you doing? But like, I'm not going to say anything mean, but in my head, I'm like, I really don't want you to be here. So I'm like, okay, well,
I know what you're saying.
So anyway,
we're walking down in certain places, like in the Strip District in Pittsburgh, and
people walk towards them and then they kind of go to the side. I tell them it's because you have that look.
Oh, yeah,
he's short, stocky, and broad, and get out of his way.
And I go and talk to her, and I ask her, "What is it that I'm shooting out that?"
It's a vibe.
It could be a big dude, and he steps out of my way because what's going on here? And she said, "You have a look. You just have a look."
Yeah. Oh, I mean, a lot of people say that I look like that wrestler called Batista. Have you heard of Batista? You should. Batista. He's big
What's that?
guy, and he's like just giant mass. He's played in some movies too. Some sort of some interesting movies. But anyway, they're like, hey, even little kids at Walmart, like, hey, you look like Batista. You know, I'm like,
Is Batista on Guardians of the Galaxy?
yeah, that's Batista. Yeah.
Yeah, that's who he is. All right.
Then that's what somebody said when they signed me up for their program. Like, man, dude, you look like Dave Batista's brother. I was like,
Well, how
no,
tall are you?
5'9" almost.
So
Really?
you're not really
I'm
tall.
5'11".
Oh wow. Yeah, I'm not that tall.
Oh,
But anyway,
you appear that way.
what's that?
You just appear that way.
Yeah, maybe up here that way. I don't know. But I'm like, I'll take it. Hey. And but anyway, so that was the thing. Maybe after this presentation or something, I have thoughts and ideas, but it's like what I'm starting to realize now with the understanding how to get over to Israel and understanding all these things,
Yeah.
it's got me thinking some things that we could talk about all later, but like I'm like, man, like I remember when I went to boot camp and all these things, and I remember like some of the things that they had to do to jump through hoops and things just to do what they said. Now, is part of me thinks, you know, is God really getting this down to the nitty gritty where it's this narrow where he wants that? Is that part of the close relationship that we're having, or are we just like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I just like, how would somebody not see this, get it, and at least try? Is it going to be this hard to reach people? You know what I'm saying? And that's the other thing too, is now that we know that we have to work or have work visas, and it makes sense. It's harder to become a citizen, but we would bind to that. It's very specific to make these presentations, to point this out, because you're not getting it anywhere else. Like you're just, I just don't understand what people are gonna, they're just gonna be missing so much. But what I do think is we should work with the people that are closest to us, like family, friends, and anybody in the school that's earnestly trying. And I think within those groups, until something bigger opens up or we meet the right people or whatever it is, that maybe it's me that gets the LLC, maybe we have a couple of people, and then we hire our family and friends to work for us over there to get them in a position where we continue on and not be so, because I'm just trying to figure out, God, what did you want from this? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, I wasn't thinking about this back then, and it's good that I wasn't, because I may not have done the work that I needed to do, but maybe that was the work they needed to do because we needed to check it off the list so that everybody had that opportunity, and then they just threw it under the bus, you know? I know that makes sound strange, but I'm thinking all the things that have led me here, I didn't have this information until I responded to these other little things, you know?
Got it.
So anyway, I'm just kind of putting it back out as I get it. And then maybe when everything happens, we'll get more guidance and information, maybe. I don't know. So let me do this. Let me do a screen share. And I'm going to try to bring up this PowerPoint. Oh, there it is. See if you guys can see this. I'm going to check and see if there's something I needed to change over here. Nope, it's not too long. Slideshow. So I decided that it's time to make a presentation on the seals of Revelation. Again, my name is Justin Mitchell, lead instructor and owner of End Time Watchman School of Advanced Biblical Prophecy and Online Evangelism. And we're going to go through what these seals are. I put some pictures more on here, and I was going to probably take a look in the Bible at these. The reason why I did this is because even though we go over some of them in the courses, there's a couple things that we can draw out separately and see this and have a better understanding of, like, hey, this makes sense because God gave us the very end before he gave us this beginning. We were asleep at the beginning. He gave us this end. Everybody's talking about the end, but he's like, don't follow them that say the time is near. like pay attention to some of the things that I said to look for. That's what people are missing. They're not taking a Christ at face value, and we've got to make sure that we understand this. That's why nobody's getting anything. They're not focused on the blueprint here. They're focused, many people are focused on trying to fit the 7 seals into a 7-year time frame. And once you start to see this, you're like, that doesn't make any sense. Because that's for man, and that's before these things start happening. So they're going to try to fit something in to God's word by looking at stuff instead of taking God's word and seeing what actually happened and what's happening or what's going to happen. That's the confusion. That's the deception. Deception is exactly what Satan did. He threw everybody off and told them that, go do this, or, you start going down this way and you don't have the pieces of the puzzle. You're just going to create your own little path, and it's going to blow up in your face. But that's kind of what God wants people to do, because it's like, this is my message. It's special for my people who are seeking me, and it's going to get, and I'm going to show you exactly kind of how Nelson and all these people that are missing certain things, we're going to learn a little bit about some mistakes people make because they don't understand this. And that should probably help. And I'm working on these presentations that we can probably send to people. And then after they're done, if they want to go through the courses and stuff like that, that's really where the meat of things are. So let's talk real quick about the mystery of the scroll revealed. Son of man, I've made you a watchman. I'm sending you to Christians or rebellious people. Speak my words to them. If they listen or fail to listen, he handed me a scroll with words of lament, mourning, and woe on both sides, but they won't listen to you because they won't listen to me. I've put them in a deep sleep, so the words of the scroll are sealed. They say they love me, but their hearts are far from me. They worship me with pagan practices taught by men. Okay, therefore, once more I will terrify my people with war, famine, and plague. The words of the scroll was sealed with 7 seals. I guess I'll let this guy back in. When Christ opened the first seal, a white horse and rider rode out as a conqueror bent on conquest in 2001 U.S. War on Terror. Christians remained asleep until the second seal. And then after 9/11, God opened the words of the scroll, something similar in Ezekiel 3. He said to me, son of man, go now to my people of and speak my words to them, but my people are not willing to listen to you because they are not willing to listen to me, for they are all hardened and obstinate. It's kind of like our group, but I will make you as unyielding and hardened as they are. I will make your forehead like the hardest stone, harder than flint. Do not be afraid of them, though they are a rebellious people. And he said to me, son of man, listen carefully and take to heart all the words I speak to you. Go now to my people and speak to them. Say to them, this is what the sovereign God Jehovah says, whether they listen or fail to listen. So it's like all this getting played out. It's like, is this just a story somebody made up? But once you see it, it's like, we're literally part of prophecy right now. We're once you start responding, you're part of it. It's like you start doing this stuff, you start to understand how hard it is to get something across. But it's all right, because that's just going to increase your faith more, and it turns you into a different person. If you didn't have this, we weren't doing this, it'd be easier for us to just fall away. We wouldn't even have a testimony for people. You see what I'm saying? Like we could talk about it, but what if you showed what was going on with you? And that's the difference. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So I put the messages in the seals. All right. And again, this goes really deep. We're not going to get into everything. That's what the courses are all about, and I'd recommend them. A lot of people struggle with what is a horse and rider, because if you don't ask God what's a horse and rider, you're going to come up with whatever you want. God mentions it in the Bible. Somewhere in the Bible, God always answers the questions that we have, because if you go out beyond what's written, it's just creating something that somebody else can't follow unless they go outside the Bible too. So we got to ask the question, please God, what is a horse and rider? The first time we see the horse and rider is in Exodus 15, 1-4. If you read that, it talks about Pharaoh and his army, that the horse and rider were hurled into the sea. Pharaoh and his army were hurled into the sea. If you take that consistently throughout Scripture, it's always talking about a rider, a leader, a horse, a rider, and the horse represents a nation, or military. The rider represents the leader. So the same thing with like the Pharaoh and his army. But they, you'll see this over and over in scriptures. But the first time you see something, you take notice in God's word, because he's going to use that throughout the rest of scriptures. This is part of the closed sealed messages, because think about it. When at this time, and there's a message, God's got to be pretty consistent in what he's saying, because it's like he's kind of doing something new, but he's had it there the whole time. So you better be paying attention to how he's hid this in his word, because God hides a message and hides information for his people, not or for them, but not from them, for a certain time, so that they can get it and move into action. But part of that is studying and asking God, what did we miss here? Most people are just trying to figure out what God's saying by what's happening in the world. And that's the worst thing to do, is because then you start to create certain things that sound good. You got man's teachings, you're mixing all this stuff, you're not asking God anything. You're very close, because these agendas are all trying to mimic each other and fight each other. But then you've got God's people's agenda that's like goes right straight down through the middle of all this, and is bypassing all these wars, not necessarily bypassing, but is protected through everything. So a lot of people are going to get caught up thinking something. If they don't get it or respond, it's going to be too late for them. And that's part of understanding the parable of the 10 virgins. But if you look at this chart here, this map, white horse goes to the west, red horse to the east, black horse to north, and pale horse to the south. We go into the courses, so we're going to talk about these seals as we go. So I just want to show you the map is basically from Israel, okay, and where they go. And once you get through this, you kind of should start to see kind of how everything's going. But again, I've been doing this so long, and I'm seeing everything played out. So it's like God wanted you to be prepared with the right information, so you could just watch it play. You can move into action so much easier. It's hard to move into action when you don't even know what to look for. It's hard to be on guard. It's hard to have a plan. I mean, like, you're going to end up falling into some other plan, or you're going to say, hey, this is too much. You're not going to want it. But it's something that God is designed for you to want more of each day. Okay. Each day you take a step. He's like, hey, I got a message for you now. That's why you can always get something more, even if it seems repetitious. It's meant because it's easy to fall back into something. Once you get some of the main points, then you can start moving into changing your life, helping other people, because then you'll have a testimony. Otherwise, you're just like these other people, throwing stuff on the wall and hoping that it sticks. That doesn't work like that. So the first seal, I'll explain this. I don't have too many other verses, like the courses go into a lot of this. It takes some time to go through, but I believe it was fulfilled after 9/11. Okay, and you also see in Isaiah 9/11 over here. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But the rider on the white horse, the rider held a bow, and he was given a crown, and he rode out as a conqueror. So if people were paying attention, and all Christians slept through this, so they wouldn't have even seen this. If anybody tries to say, well, I'm looking for they don't know what they're talking about. God didn't design it like that. He confirms the matter with 2 or 3 witnesses. So he does something, people don't get it. He does one more thing for them to get it. And then he's like, this is me doing it. But anybody paying attention would have to understand how God works in the first place. So they wouldn't be looking for anything that happened or is going to happen. They would be looking back. Get it? You see that? So if anybody was actually wanting to learn, they would need to know how God works. Anybody looking forward to something doesn't know anything, because you can't. That doesn't work like that. Anybody realizing that they were asleep and taking Christ at face value and start asking God, well, what did I miss? Would look back. Okay. So that was the biggest problem with everybody. We don't even spend time on that, because we're trying to point to what's ahead. And maybe we should be pointing more towards what was behind. We do sometimes, but you missed it. So I'm not trying to spend 10 years trying to get you to catch up. I'm trying to get you to see what's happened, and then you're going to accept it a little easier, because it's going to be the second witness. So many people mistake this word crown. It's actually, in the Greek, it means victor's crown. So whoever this rider was, we believe it was George Bush. And 9/11, you remember the Twin Towers. You also find in Zechariah that it talks about the 4 horses coming out of 2 bronze mountains. Bronze is the sign of judgment. mountains could be two, like the Twin Towers. So like at that time, God's name was actually revealed. Nehemiah Gordon goes into that. So a lot of things happening right at that moment that the plane hit the as you can see, everybody remembers what happened. So that's another picture. It's part of studying the whole God's word. And again, most people aren't going to see this. They wouldn't even recognize this. We just saw it happen, but we didn't know what was going on. So the Lord sent a message. All the people knew it. Their leaders said with pride and arrogance of heart, the bricks have fallen down, but we will rebuild with dressed stone. The fig trees have been felled, but we will replace them with cedars. It's always a rebuilding type thing. If you look at, I don't know if you guys have watched the 9/11 documentary, but they quote this verse and they see that there was something that fell out of the sky at ground zero, and they quoted this verse, and they made a bronze statue out of it. So if you ever get a chance to watch 9/11 Loose Change, it's a really good documentary. So I mean, it's just extra stuff that confirms what was really going on. They actually use these verses. So Jehovah strengthened their foes and stirred up their enemies from the east, which is Iran. But God's people did not return to him, nor did they seek him. They just kept going. God's anger was kindled, and his hand is still upraised. This is Isaiah 9, 8 through 11. We call the Isaiah 9:11 prophecy. Jehovah's hand will come down when he opens Revelation's second seal. Again, people, you can talk to them all day long. It's a deer in the headlights. You saw it, you didn't know what it meant. It's just this wake up that we're going to talk about shortly is huge for people to, it's like God's got a blindfold on this part of their heads, at least as it relates to this message spiritually. And it's like, God's going to open this opportunity up. So if you have this opportunity now, you're more responsible. And I think that anybody that responds gets some of this opened up in their head. In my opinion, it sounds weird, but I know my head is opening up.
Well, I understand what you're saying on this. When that happened, I have said it before, everybody thought it was just something huge and horrific. A lot of people did not see what you saw, or what you learned to see.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, that was something really bad. We need to go retaliate because, that was a real bad thing they did to us. But they're not thinking in God's terms.
Exactly. And that's the thing. People argue all day. Well, they're still in church talking about this stuff. Once you realize they're building on stuff that isn't even in the scriptures, it's like, no wonder you're not getting anything. You're not even like God. That's why I love those verses now. And it's come to my understanding as to him that has, to him more will be given. To him that hath not, what he thinks he has, God will even take that away. Even what he thinks he has. So it's like, you can't build on anything that is not in scripture. It's like, what are you building on? Like, God's not going to give you more until you respond to what he's given you. What you do have, he can give you more. Like it's so simple. And it's like, people can't even understand these parables because they're not even applying anything. Can you imagine how God, after you've spent so much time doing this, you understand how God hates all this stuff. And it doesn't even register to you anymore. It just registers you as a part of your life that was like there for a reason. And like, okay, goodbye. Like, I don't even want to reach to that level of stupidity. But I was there and I had to go through it so I could help other people. And it's just a sleepiness. But then when this happens, it's like, man, I don't know. I just wish that other people we could have coaches in a program to where I could just dish off to people and not have to feel so heavily relied on for everything, unless you were being supported or, I've lost a lot of energy and strength doing this. And I know maybe God will renew my strength at some point, but it's like, it's exhausting to keep the motivation. That's why I think, oh boy, I'll call him oh boy. I think he kind of just, I want to say sat down, he's getting older. I get it, but you got to keep going at some point. You got to keep doing something.
Do you realize he's swearing right now? He said older. He said he's old. No. We can't have those words.
But I mean, it's just.
I do understand what you're saying. And I keep on saying to myself, you don't realize you're hitting at least a couple good people that are sincerely interested
Yeah.
in pursuing this. It's just like it's one of those things that it took all that time to find a few people
Yeah.
like Madonna.
Yeah.
Maybe William will be that way, or and it's just it's taking a little bit of time. And I know it sounds disgusting, but yeah, it's coming around.
Well, we got stuff we can give to people, like, and we give, I think, in the right time, if we're put our heads together, there'll be some ways to come up with a way to present it. It's just getting all that together. And I think God has a way of keeping this down, but also knowing our hearts, because if it weren't for our hearts, this thing would just blow up. So now we're at the second seal. And we talk about the wake up of the church, and one person who I gave the course to was on here, wanted me to explain how that we connected the second seal to the wake up. And I'm like, it's a pretty deep question, to explain on just a few things on Facebook or on here. But I'd rather people just take the courses that explain it, or maybe they really don't understand. I would hope that through the Spirit they could understand. It's like I had to go over this 7 times before I started to really grasp it. But you got to realize there's a time where Christ says that all Christians wake up, and it starts with a cry at midnight. So a cry at midnight rang out, see the bridegroom come out to meet him. So something's going to happen that is a crisis. I call the cry a crisis. The crisis rings out, see the bridegroom come out to meet him. Now you know Jesus is coming back based off this, but now you don't even know what happened. So now they go back to try to figure out, this has to be biblical. Well, think about if we wouldn't have done our job, or somebody hadn't been watching for this, which nobody is. They're watching for something. They just don't even know what it is. Think about when people realize through the Spirit that, hey, this was the cry that rang out. Great destruction from the land of the Babylonians, from the United States. It takes a little study. I cannot give that guy an answer until he does some of his part too. So if people are relying 100% on the teacher, we can lead you to water, but you've got to start to seek the Holy Spirit and put forth some effort. But anyway,
True.
We tie it there because God confirms a matter with 2 or 3 witnesses. Now he's like, I can talk to you people because I've done it my way. Here's the second in time prophecy. And now you can understand what I was talking about. And now everybody's going to be held accountable, because you can no longer just hide behind ignorance. That's why God speaks in parables, so he can protect his people from the accountability that comes with it. And anybody that's been given this information like us, we're going to be held accountable, but it's like we can't really reach the people anyway. But if we're doing something for ourselves, we're benefiting, but also we're thinking about stuff so God still can speak to us to an extent. It's just everybody's hands are kind of tied, a little bit, So anyway, we also find in Habakkuk, as we go through this again, our creditors rise up. We respond to Iran's attack on our military bases. And if you know now, we've got a lot of Marines and what do you call those, fleets and stuff like that, and boats and ships and stuff like that going to the Middle East and Persian Gulf to try to, I think Iran's luring us back in. The timing of this is like, it's just a matter of like making it look a certain way to the public. It's like, we'll talk, go through all this, then make it look, and then we'll go and set all this stuff up. It's like it could have happened anytime. It's just, they'll let linger, wait for it. When it happens, then all Christians will wake up, and we'll be in an economic collapse. Habakkuk 2:7. The rider on the red horse was given power to take peace from the earth, to cause men to kill each other. To him was given a large sword, Machareia. Oh boy thinks it's battle. It is going to be a battle. I also think it's a weapon, because they're basically being handed a weapon. We can't even reach, they said that we can't even reach their underground bunkers anymore. Like, even if we tried, like, it's game over. Like, they've already got this stuff, like they've got the weapon. So my thing is like, all right, well, that's so clear. Why doesn't everybody just generalize this stuff? This ain't no generalized thing. God's very specific, and then roads narrow. You can't be general about prophecy. like prophecy is showing you salvation. I mean, it should make it very clear what God's trying to do. And it, to me, that's what drives me, because I'm living it. Like it drives me more because like it's affecting everything in my body, my mind, and my soul all at once. And I know that I'm living for that time to just prepare the last 2.5 years to meet Christ. Like that's going to be the time where because I've been to prison before. I'm not saying that's prison. I'm saying that's out of society in a way to get me ready and institutionalized to meet the King and enter the kingdom. It's like that's the way he's told us. That's the boot camp recommendation that he's got for people. So it's just, to me, it makes sense like that. That hey, you've done this before. You're going to come out on the other side into a society that's different from everything else, but you got to jump through some hoops to get there. But that's part of your relationship. It's part of your testimony. So anyway, we got all that stuff there. Third seal. All right. So when Christ opens the third seal, we see the rider on the black horse went to the north, Russia. And though while a lot of people like, looks like Russia or China could easily nuke us now, and I think there'll be a lot of war around the world. It's going to be a world war, but if people understand the seals, they're going to understand that like God's got to wake up his people to understand who Mystery Babylon is so they can leave. That's why I think Shanna was having trouble with the timing of all this. She texted me stuff and said something like she thought that Trump sent me a video of people thinking that Trump's going to destroy America and then head over to Israel to become the king of the Jews as the Antichrist. It's like, where do they get this stuff at? And then it's like, especially after I haven't went back to see if she's done the study or not, but it's like that stuff starts to get to me if you haven't really done it, and now you're sending me this stuff. To me, it's like a slap in the face. It's like, why do you keep throwing this stuff out at me, knowing that I don't like? It doesn't make any sense. So
Yes or no? Has she done the study?
yeah, so
She's done the
just
study.
it lets me know that she either doesn't believe it or she hasn't done the study or something. So I know that we have a whole presentation course on the USA. So like this is just a piece of showing you that hey, they ain't using their nukes right now. They've got them lined up, but the way this carries out, this is God's plan. Okay, the way this carries out, this is God's plan. His purpose is to destroy Babylon. He's using, there's Tammy. He's using Iran as a kind of like this pawn to start this thing. And then it's like, okay, you sacrificed yourself, and now the big boys are going to like take care of you since they're, kind of bound to you and these agreements and these certain things. So it's like, you little guy, you start this, and we'll make sure that we take care of you in a certain way. And then at the end, Russia can simply just set us up on the basis of what happened over here, whether that's the plan and they know it or not. I think Putin's behind this whole thing. I mean, I don't know if you know this or not, but there's articles that talk about that Trump was conditioned years ago with Russia. He's been groomed. Now, I'm not going to say he's a Russian spy or anything like that, but what I am going to say is the Bolshevik Revolution is almost similar to what happened here. Okay, what you do is you start a civil war, you start all this stuff, you pull out the people who are, so think about it like this, you pull out the people that are for this guy, you set them up, and then you take them out. But you have to figure out a way to find out who's for all this. That's what I think God's doing, using the same tactics as they did in the Bolshevik Revolution to separate the people that are kind of for this, get them out of here so we don't have to deal with them anymore, and that they're structured. So that's kind of what I see. I see, we'll let you go this way so you can take out all these people, because we got guns and we got all this stuff, but hey, we'll take you out and we won't have to worry about you anymore. But we'll do it in such a dirty, crafty way that it's like, okay, now you're done. Like you're done. You're done, and now we can do whatever we want. But again, the Antichrist kind of, takes that on himself to convince everybody, but it's still kind of like what's happening. I mean, I'm not going to hang a hat on it, but I see that as very similar to tactics in the past about how you take out big countries. They've used this in the past before. So just something to think about. Anyway, God tells his people to flee. There's got to be a wake up before you flee. You can't flee until you wake up. What are you fleeing from? You're not even awake. So it's like, you flee out of Babylon, you recognize who it is. Then you got people like Nelson or other people that are saying it's something else. And it's like, or not even coming to that conclusion. And again, we're going to go into, that's why I didn't put in what everybody would learn from all this stuff. But I didn't, a lot of people make mistakes because they don't understand the seals and they come up with things. They don't have this information. They have nothing. And so they're left with a couple pieces of the puzzle, and then they're left with other agendas that aren't even in scripture, and they're trying to fit it all in there. That's what's happening. You got four different puzzles, and you're trying to fit it in this puzzle with these different it doesn't work like that, people. You got to have the puzzle that has, the Bible and verses within that you get at this time. I don't know. It's just stupid what people are doing. So anyway, the third seal is destruction of the United States. You better be gone before that. We go into that in our courses. You're living on borrowed time after the second seal. You're living on borrowed time. That's just for us to make decisions to continue our life somewhere else. And that's where we're at right now. That's where I'm at. I'm like, okay, well, instead of looking at this like, hey, well, this is just doom and gloom, and no, this is your life, man. Like make good use of the information that you have. And you know what I'm saying? It's like this is your opportunity. Food at the proper time. This is your opportunity to do something. And this is what I'm giving you. Do something with it. This is all you got. That's it. When you really break it down like that, then you actually have a plan. You have information to work with. That's what I like about all this stuff. I'm not sitting out here like these goofballs. I shouldn't say bad words, but it's like they keep coming into this thing like hamsters and checking out information. It's like, what are you doing? I don't even want to be around you. I want to know what's happening. I don't want to be around hamsters. I want to be around God's people. like, what are you people doing? You're not helping me. You're not showing me anything. Yeah, anyway, so that's what I have to deal with like a lot. So I don't want us to be those types of people. I want us to be able to show people what we're doing. And I've got some ideas on how to get that done. We're going to have to make decisions regardless. And I think being in a group or having the right mindset will help. Couple minds instead of one mind. The fourth seal, which most people don't talk about, happens maybe not right after the destruction of the United States, but it happens right before the last 7 years. So after the destruction of the United States, the Antichrist subdues 3 kings. Egypt engages Antichrist. Okay, so this is the rider on the pale horse going south. You find this in Daniel. Okay, and so we have a whole course on a section of the course on this. So what this does is this, and the reason why Antichrist doesn't just go ahead and invade Israel is because Egypt engages him in this war. He's got to regroup. He confirms a covenant that was broken. Okay, so that covenant that was broken is the destruction of the United States. After the second seal, there's going to be some sort of an agreement made. This one didn't work. This Iran deal war isn't working out. There's going to be a war. There's going to have to be some sort of an agreement made with nations that this wouldn't happen again. Okay, so a question that I asked Nelson and Marquis, and we're going to go into this afterwards. We're going to see these things that are messed up. What about that covenant that's confirmed by the Antichrist? It's not made by the Antichrist. It's confirmed by the Antichrist. So there had to be an existing covenant, okay, that had to have been broken and had to have been made to start the last 7 years. Okay, well, after the destruction of the United States, I think that's when this agreement is broken, because everything should be fine and it should look like everything's getting back together. Not so fast. That happens. Then Egypt engages Antichrist in another war. Then he has to regroup, and he confirms a covenant with Israel, and he uses that last 3.5 years to regroup before he engages in Israel. So all we're doing is we got a little bit more borrowed time that we're living on. That's God's giving us borrowed time. borrowed time, and then here's your time before you enter the kingdom. So we're just living on God's time. And we got to understand this, and we got to share this with people. Okay. So as you can see here, this happened shortly after the third seal and right before the last 7 years where Antichrist confirms a covenant. This is really hard to get to if you don't understand the seals. This is hard information that's been hidden. I think Deuteronomy says hidden in his vaults until now. All right. But again, if we didn't ask the question, what's a horse and rider, we wouldn't understand this from scriptures. You got people that have taken this information and they're trying to put this information in other puzzles that have nothing to do with God's word. They're just over here looking like goofy people, goofy theology. I don't want goofy theology, that's not me. So anyway, put this in here before we go on to the further, the last 7 years, the fifth and sixth seals, and the Great Tribulation. In this little picture here, you see the last 7 years. Okay, so after Egypt engages Antichrist, he regroups, okay, and confirms this covenant with Israel. So you're going to have a period of 3.5 years of peace and safety, and then you're going to have a great tribulation after that. In the middle is when we see the abomination that causes desolation. We see Antichrist come in, he's got everything up, sets himself up in the temple. You're not worshiping any other gods, any other people but me now. Okay. Well, then that's where the mark of the beast starts. So we don't have to worry about that until then. At this point, the whole world's almost annihilated. And so we see this, and then we see Christ's return after that great tribulation, the second coming, the seventh trumpet. So you got 5, 6, and 7. Okay. So you got seals 1, 2, and 3 are getting the United States taken out of. Fourth is Egypt trying to take out Antichrist. It doesn't happen. 5th, 6th, and 7th is all Antichrist in his wars on, really the third seal is wars, Antichrist on the United States. But 5th, 6th, and 7th is the Antichrist, and then Christ comes to take out the fourth and final beast kingdom, Antichrist. All right, and we've got these presentations on Antichrist and other things as well. But understand that from the seals, their wars, setups, things that help stage the next events. Things that help stage the next events. That's all they are, big events that stage and either allow more time for God's people to see what's going on and then make decisions. That's all it is. And people confuse the tribulation with God's wrath as well. Yes, technically it is pre-wrath, post-trib, but it's really people, what is pre-wrath to people? We're going to go into that here in a little bit too. So this Antichrist, all right, and we talked about, we find out that he is from ancient Syria, is the leader of Iraq. Isaiah 10:20 talks about that. This is the fifth seal, is the war on the saints. So if we were to go into that right now, and that's what I haven't been doing, is reading this from Revelation. Take a look at this real quick. The seals, so the fifth seal. And when he opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of all those who had been slain because of the word of God and the testimony that they had maintained. They called out in a loud voice, "How long, sovereign Lord, holy and true, until you judge the inhabitants of the earth and avenge our blood?" Then each of them was given a white robe, and they were told to wait a little longer until the number of their fellow servants and brothers who were killed as they had was been completed. And it also talks about in Revelation 11 and 13 about the Antichrist as well. Just throwing in him in here so you kind of see that's the war on the saints. Now, sixth seal. All right. Sixth seal. Let's go ahead and read it. I watched as he opened the sixth seal. There was a great earthquake. The sun turned black like sackcloth, made of goat hair. The whole moon turned blood red, and the stars in the sky fell to earth. The late figs dropped from a fig tree when shaken by a strong wind. The sky receded like a scroll rolling up, and every mountain and island was removed from its place. Didn't put that in there, but for preterists that think this has been done in the past, what about every mountain and every island was moved from its place? You see stuff like that is like just ignorance, and this is what Satan wants, because you're building off nothing again. I'm taking it away. Like, if you're living in this time, you better know what's going on. Like it is not smart to not know what's going on. I mean, this is information that sets you free, gives you a whole new other life, and you're not going to be a hamster. You're getting set free with this information. Real quick, no one knows the day of the hour. I'll explain this. I may go to this video that I put on here that I made as well to help understand it. Nobody knows the day or the hour because Christ is coming back on the Feast of Trumpets. The Feast of Prophecies, okay? Most people think this applies to the pre-trib rapture. No, it applies to the coming of Christ, okay? The second coming after the tribulation. But you wouldn't know because as we read, the sun is dark and the moon's turned to blood. The feast which no one knows the day or the hour, the Feast of Trumpets, you're supposed to be looking up in the sky at for a sliver of a moon to know what time it is. We would know when Christ is coming. We would have been watching this whole time. You see how easy things get blown away, and it's really simple. That's why God hates all this deception. It's like you're taking God's word, you're screwing it up royally, and you think that you're going to get to heaven by doing that? You're going to burn. Like you're really deceiving people, especially at this time. The problem with the pre-wrath idea. The pre-wrath idea, and again, I believe in pre-wrath in the sense of God's bowls aren't poured out until after the tribulation, after he comes. We're saved from wrath, yes, but most people try to throw then this rapture thing somewhere in the middle of the last 3.5 years. Let's read what this says in Daniel, and they try to use that verse that says, unless those days were cut short. Let's read this verse real quick. The pre-wrath idea states that the rapture will happen sometime during the last 3.5 years, time and a half a time, or 42 months of the Great Tribulation. Daniel 7:25 proves that the 3.5 years will not be cut short. He, the Antichrist, will speak against the Most High and oppress his holy people and try to change the set times and the laws. The holy people, the saints, will be delivered into his hands for a time, times and a half a time. Everything's on point. Again, if you don't understand the Feast of God, you're going to come up with your own story. You're going to set your own dates. God's already set a date. You just don't know the day and hour. He's saying this. All God's people are going to go through that whole time. Then the end comes. So it's like, there's your verse. And what I think that verse is saying with the elect not being cut short is like, no, like he's just saying, had God not done this, like he said he was going to do, everybody would destroy. He already told you when he's going to do it. So again, people are screwed up. Let's go to this real quick. Let's watch my little video if you guys can see it. It explains it, what I just said before, in a couple minutes. If you ever want to use the video, you can.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Justin Mitchell, lead instructor and owner of End Time Watchman, School of Advanced Biblical Prophecy and Online Evangelism. And in this video, I'm going to talk to you guys today about the no man knows the day or the hour phrase that people continue to get wrong and what that really means when Christ is talking about that and why that's important. So most people, when they hear the word no man knows the day or the hour, it's coming from somebody in church that teaches a pre-trib rapture, talking about a pre-trib rapture that no man knows the day or the hour. That is completely false. That is not what this context of Matthew 24 is talking about. It's talking about immediately after the tribulation, when Christ comes his second time. Nothing about a pre-trib rapture. The reason why it's misunderstood is because Christians don't follow the Feast of God. They don't even understand the Feast of God. And God has always been on that calendar. God's ways are eternal. They don't change. So in order to understand this message of no man knows the day or the hour, then you need to understand the Feast of God. And one of the Feasts of God is the Feast of Trumpets. Okay? That's referred to as the feast which no man knows the day or the hour. So actually, Christ was giving us a clue when he would come. It's not that people don't know when Christ will come. He told you directly when he would come. And he also talks about that in Acts 3:21. Okay, so, and just all over the place. It's talking about his second coming, his parousia. But the fact is, he's giving you a clue. You're supposed to be looking up into the sky on the feast which knows, in the feast of trumpets, which no man knows the day or the hour, and you would see an actual crescent moon. You would see something that would let you know that's when that feast was. Okay, so he's telling you guys, what is the rest of that verse, the verses say in Matthew 24:29 through 31, that at that time the sun and moon would be darkened and turned to blood. And so you wouldn't be able to recognize that the day or the hour. You wouldn't be able to recognize that feast. So that's the reason why no man knows the day or the hour. But you would know that Christ is getting ready to come. It's not going to be, you're not in darkness, but you are if you don't know anything. Okay, and so that's what it's talking about. Christ is giving you a clue when he's going to come, but no man's not going to know the day or the hour because the sun and moon are darkened after the tribulation when he comes again. I hope this helps. Don't get it wrong because it's completely deceiving everybody.
All right. So that helps. I mean, everybody's messed up at this point. I get tired. At this point, I'm so tired of hearing people. I don't even put energy into it. It's not because I don't want to. It's just, it makes me vomit. So it's like, I don't want to vomit, so I'm not dealing with this anymore. It's like, God. And then, so anyway, I mean, but when you get to that point, you know you're going somewhere because you've separated enough. And that's what God wants, all this separation. And I'm not there yet. That's why I'm really, really, really looking forward to whatever that ceiling is of his people, because then I'll be like, hey, you know, I'm all God's now. Now we're just chilling for a little while, for a few years, but like at least you made it there. So anyway, the seventh seal is when Christ comes again to set up his millennial kingdom. Again, it's the prophecy. Okay. I had somebody else talk about this today. They can't even read this chart. They don't understand it. It's like nobody's been taught anything. So you try to explain it to them, and I saved it for maybe next week or whenever we do evangelism again. But after 2 days, he will revive us. On the third day, he will restore us so that we may live with him. But he's talking about the last days. Okay. So we get revived on the sixth day into the seventh. That would be the resurrection. Christ died, buried, and rose again, started the last days, those black highlighted days. And he's talking about that on the third day, he will restore us. Acts 3:21 talks about God restoring all things. So again, that's after he comes back. He must remain in heaven until the time to restore all things. So that's God's plan. This is the last days. When people say, oh, we're in the last days, they're probably talking about the last days of this world, but not the last days as if understanding from God's word. We've been in the last days since Christ's death on the cross. You see what I'm saying? So it's like the ignorance is on an astronomical level at this point because of so much deception. It's this is why, guys, this is why it's so important that we come to this recognizing that people are extremely ignorant from deception and try to point it out in presentations to be like, hey, in testimonies, be like, hey, you know, this, I don't know what it's going to take. For me, it was just responding to certain things that was happening. I was actually putting stuff together. So it's actually changing me. I want it to be the same with you guys. And I also want us to be able to present it to where it's like, if you were anybody that's set in front of you right now, you would be able to say, this is what's happening. The good question at the prophecy conference was, how do you share the gospel with somebody at this time, knowing that this is in the world? Well, you try to explain to them that this is where we're at. You have this much time left to trust, you know, this is where you're at. You're actually at it. You got to kind of point to them where they're at so that they understand the urgency, to do this. And by presenting end time prophecy, you also get a chance to present salvation to them as well by sharing that to them. And hopefully, if they haven't been corrupted by church, they'll respond better and people will be able to respond better, I would hope. This is why I keep my group private. And all these people that will try to post stuff and I decline it, it's because it has nothing to do with anything. It's like, you're not showing up to the Zooms. You've agreed to the rules. That's why you have rules to say, hey, I promote my school in this so that you don't look bad. You're sharing them. If they're really serious about stuff, they will be like you guys and come in. This is why we need testimony. So again, that just shows you the Sabbath. We have a 7-year, the seventh day is a 1,000-year reign. The Sabbath rest for God's people will be ruling and reigning. And keep in mind, we got to make sure that we get the tetra or those whatever the flash drive or whatever that is, and take it with us when we go to Petra, so that when we get out, if there's anything working left, we can give it to these people and we can show them what we did. I don't know if that'll happen or not, but it's just the fact that, you know, we're going to be sharing this in the kingdom from a different perspective. We'll be like police. We'll have a job because of what we did. you know, but if you're some goofball over here that's not doing anything, you're probably going to be sitting on the sidelines looking at a wall somewhere. You might be in heaven, maybe, but you like, what are you doing? Like you wasted everything that you were given. Well, this is what you get, man. Sorry. So the end time seals of Revelation, we got this graph here. We think maybe this year could be the second seal, but that's the wake up of all Christians. You can see better in a timeline. That's why we present this. Not that we're trying to say, oh, this is when it's going to happen, but to let these people know there is a blueprint. There is a way that God designs this destruction. There is a way that God works. This is how he does it. The message is in the seals. Okay. If you don't wake up, well, you wake up at the second seal. If you don't start making decisions, you're going to get taken out. You're not even going to make it to the very end. There's so many people are talking about the very end. They don't even know where they're at. They're just wasting their breath because they have something to talk about, but they have no way of putting it into words the way God intended it. So I just stay away from a lot of people. The evangelism is more right now for me trying to bring people in to see, because I didn't get anywhere unless I got away from things. So unless you pull them out of the nonsense that they're in, they're going to remain in nonsense. And no matter how much this stuff we share with them, like Shanna, if she remains in the nonsense land, she's going to remain with nonsense. It's not rocket science, it's nonsense. You know, it's like it's night and day. I mean, there's black and white. And all I can do with somebody like that is like, I can't answer your questions. It's built on nonsense. Get out of here. Like, I'll try to help you, but after so many times of nonsense, you're showing me where you're at. It's the same thing with God. Hey, I'm going to take away what you think you have, and you're not even going to be able to build. But if you respond to what I'm giving you, I'll give you more. It's that simple. Understand God's word. Here's the things that I wanted to show earlier. I don't think I should have put this in the slides about what we can see and the mistakes that have been made. Okay. Well, what can we learn? The mistakes that we can see. What we've learned is, number one, a horse is a nation, a rider is a leader. Number two, 9/11 was the first seal. The crown was a victor's crown. So we're trying to get this right so we don't get it wrong. Number three, the wake up of the church is the cry or the crisis in Revelation 6:4, Matthew 25:1-7. At this point, if you've been through the courses and stuff, you'll understand it better than somebody just walking into this. That's why I would recommend, if you're somebody that hasn't taken a course or hasn't went farther, you need to understand this better. This is more of a refresher and a blueprint. Number four, the Antichrist is from the people of the ruler who will come. We touched on this a little bit, but again, he comes from ancient Syria. In 70 AD, the people in the Roman army were ancient Syrians. Okay, and so we understand this is part of the God's closed sealed message, is how things progress, and understanding that at this time, the Antichrist came from the people of the ruler who will come. Back then, he's explaining something because it's closed and sealed. Now we see that. Now we understand who he rises from. We've got a whole presentation and course on this that will help you understand why that's different than what other people are pointing out. The covenant confirmed on Feast of Trumpets. Now, I didn't put this in there, but you can conclude that if Christ is coming back 7 years from or on the Feast of Trumpets, okay, that this, and it's interesting. I put it out here because Nelson had mentioned this, but Nelson had mentioned that he said the tribulation starts on that. I would agree with that in the sense that you can point to when he would come again. What I don't agree is he's saying that sometimes they throw in that the Antichrist makes the covenant. That completely throws things off. Antichrist confirms or strengthens the covenant. So I don't think that the covenant that's confirmed will be on any particular day. I think that or made on any particular day. I think it'll be made. But I think the reasoning behind confirming it on a certain day is for deception. It's for thinking that, hey, peace, safety, I got you. I'm going to confirm this for you guys. It's going to be peace and safety. I'm going to do it right here on your holiday. I'm going to do it on this feast. You know, talk about the peace. That puts something in somebody's mind. But if you're smart and you understand scripture at that point, you'll see it falling away. At that, you can put it together. But if you've been following traditions and you don't know what's going on, you don't know what to look for, you're just falling in traps, then you're not even going to see anything. But if you're always a step ahead, you're going to be able to share something with somebody. We find out that USA is Babylon and is destroyed by Antichrist in Russia, Revelation 17:16. Again, the rider on the black horseman to the north. The Bible talks about that the Antichrist gets help from a foreign god. We go into that, how he doesn't have the nuclear weapons to destroy us, but he will use someone else's and convince them, conspire with them to destroy the United States and burn her with fire. Conspiracy. Okay, so it's something he wants to hurt people. And again, this is all part of this plan to take out a whole group of people so they don't have to deal with them anymore. A covenant is confirmed, strengthened, not made by Antichrist. Christ comes at the feast, which no man knows the day or the hour. Okay. The wedding banquet is on Mount Zion. We talked about that in earlier courses and stuff like that. But again, after Christ comes, we realize that there's no gathering in the sky before the tribulation and some sort of wedding banquet. It's weird. This is on Mount Zion. Matthew 22 and Isaiah 25:6 talks about this. Christ will come. That's why we're going back to Israel. That's why we're following this blueprint so we can partake in all this stuff, guys. Like, this has got to become your life at some point. It has to become a relationship. It has to become something that you understand. Yes, you are going to have to put it together. It's going to be tough to see, but that's why it takes work. That's why we have a school. That's why we have Zooms. That's why we have teachers answer questions. That's why I continue to learn, so we can make it even clearer. There's no Christmas or Easter or Sunday in the kingdom. So again, many people are going to still be doing Christmas and Easter, following the teachings of men, and they're going to get wiped out. We've got to start looking towards the kingdom. We've got to start following the feast. We've got to start participating in end time prophecy. We've got to start understanding this stuff. We have to start understanding this, or else it's just going to be repetition and not a real life-changing event that transforms us. So this concludes the presentation. I know if you guys have done the courses, it makes some sense. I also know that it's helpful to see that. What do you guys think?
It definitely wakes you up and refreshes you.
Yeah.
What you went through, because it confirms everything that we went through in the courses, yet things that you've learned or refreshed yourself on, you're giving it to us, and it has a little bit of a different spin on it.
Yeah.
But it's the same material.
Exactly. Yeah. And when you go back into these groups, like, I'm always posting groups, I'm seeing stuff come up. Sometimes I engage. The more you see how clear it is, and then you see these, I don't know, you shouldn't call them goofballs, but I'm like, goofy theology, people looking at this, oh, the number of this matches up with this number in 1964, and I'm like, oh my goodness. It's like, I mean, it's a matter of taking Christ at face value and moving forward at this time. Nothing else is going to work. Sorry, I'm not trying to be it's not, it's out of love. It's out of like clarity. The reason why I do things the way I do is not to have control over people, but knowing how people are, we don't want that. We're trying to get away from that. We're trying to separate from chaotic, goofy people. Don't give me goofy. Like, God's not going to, he's not going to have these chaotic, goofy people in his kingdom. It's not going to work for God. You got to go through this path to transform yourself from goofy to Christ-like. And like, I've realized that we're getting ready to have a lot of pepperoni pizza here. No, but no, we're trying to like acknowledge how goofy and asleep we were, and be like, man, this is a whole nother life, because Satan wants you to be goofy and he wants you to be ignorant. That's his whole plan. The more ignorant you can be, the less you can do anything for God. So, I mean, who wants to do that, you know? And this is so simple. I mean, a third grader could do it. And the reason why I say that is because Christ says, unless you become like little children, you'll never enter the kingdom. And he's wanting that faith. Just look at Abraham again, to kill his son Isaac. That's not logical. Like, why would you want to kill? But God said it, but he's trying to test us and what we would do. But again, you know, I mean, everybody's got their struggles, but God also requires faith. So it's like in love. So it's like, what are you doing? You know? So anyway, that kind of brings us out. Anybody have any other questions or thoughts, or do you guys think that's a good presentation to redo? And I'm going to stick these in the school as well.
That was a good one.
I liked it.
I liked it a lot.
Okay, that's good. I'm going to show you one other thing real quick, and then we'll take some questions and we'll be done. But I want to show you where I'm at in the school. Something that I was going to try. I'm trying to do. Get out of here.
No, add cheesecake to it.
So, show. All right, close. And all right, so hopefully I'm still logged in.
Okay.
I gotta, is it sign up? I might have to sign up real quick. Yeah, I can be able to continue. Hopefully. But what I'm trying to do is, I was trying to put these videos into digital downloads, but I think because it only allows MP3, I haven't been able to upload them just yet into digital downloads. I uploaded something one time. Maybe it was a different file, but now we're going to skip AI generator. What I'm doing, I would like to try to do this in digital downloads. If I can get the presentation, I may end up just having to put it of the link to it. You know, that still would work. Maybe give some instruction on presentation and then lead them into a course. But what I am doing is this. I'm working on an online seminar, and I still got a lot of work to do. So like, I'm slowly working behind the scenes when I get a chance. This is it. So I've got all of our presentations. I'm not trying to overload everybody, but basically if you're not wanting to do a course and you're wanting to watch stuff, get an idea, and usually after the presentation, you're like, you need more. So I've got, and I'm going to switch all these too. I don't want to go into those right away. I want to start with like that. I'll switch that. I'll switch a couple of these. I need to download that. Oh, I did download that. I need to get Antichrist in there. But some of these other ones, I need to do this one. I need to do this one again separately. I've got some of them done, but I need to redo them to where it's not on Zoom with us. It's on just a one-on-one. I need to do this one. That's about all that we need. And then we got the ministry's presentation about the school. I guess I could have that first, maybe. I've got my signature presentation and the affiliates presentation, but I figure once we get all those in there, it gives people a chance to, you know, learn, watch, maybe see what it's about, and maybe upsell them or direct them to a course or direct them to something else. But again, this takes time, but I think that's enough. And I'd like to put them in digital downloads or add them maybe to a digital download and just say, put them all on all the links to my YouTube in that or something, or a link to the YouTube in each digital download for a presentation. Something to get them to be like, hey, if you don't want to start with the course, maybe you just start watching this. You didn't show up anyway, so here's what you're missing, you know. But once we get all this going and we have enough coaches to attach a schedule and say, hey, I think my landlord was telling me, she said, hey, after we talked, she was like, it would probably be good to have that coaching or that entry into there to see where people are at, the one-on-one. I ultimately think, because of my lack of time to cover everything, if we had the people that have the time to create a calendar and say, hey, go to this coach, she has availability or he has availability to talk, or maybe have a general onboarding session or something like that, because I think that interaction I've realized is what helps people grow. They're not going to really grow too much unless they're very driven people, and people are not driven. So you need that one-on-one stuff. So when Teachable ever gets that, then maybe we can go that route. I just don't want to use any other platforms because we put so much in this. Maybe one day use that other one, but again, if people aren't going to respond to the simplest things, you know, I just don't have any more else to give. And that's what I was going to talk to you guys about. I personally think that, this is just my thoughts. Knowing what we know, on the basis of knowing what we know and knowing, where people are at, instead of doing the old boy thing, who I say when old boy is, instead of waiting till it's time, start planning on how we're going to be able to help people, or where are our boundaries, or what are we going to do, because there's lots of things that we're going to need to do to transfer our finances and our style of living or our work. At least I know I'm going to have to through this time. That's what I would want to get close people and friends to thinking about that, because we've been faithful and working together into certain things, and have that. I don't think that we're going to want to have a big draw a lot of attention to what we're trying to do, but I think we could teach people how to do that in small groups to get people over there. That's with the knowledge that we have. I think that's where God's guiding and leading us, because we've got the knowledge. This is where God's leading us. Unless there's another door that opens to get this out there, great. But I'm starting to see that, hey, this is what God's given us. So let's use it. We've got potential. We've got smart people. We've got certain things. Throw out there what we can do. And if you agree on it, what's it going to be to make it easier for us to navigate through all this stuff? And if somebody wants to watch a presentation, they want to join, or they want to support, or they see the value. If something miraculous doesn't happen, at least we have each other. We have what we've been given, and we're accountable for that. But that's what I think. I don't, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So, and I'm learning more, but I would have even ran across the entry into Israel and all that had it not been for me thinking about what was it that got me thinking about that. It was living on borrowed time. It was realizing the Trump thing. It was seeing all these things put together. You naturally want to be one step ahead, and then you feel responsible. So God's like, okay, well, I've entrusted him with this. Well, maybe I can give him this. And then he gives you enough to get started on something else. If people were really paying attention and doing what they're supposed to do, like, that's their problem, not mine. I mean, like, I am sharing what I can, like I have put it, but if you can't even respond to little things, God can't help you. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I'm just trying to find what's left of the efforts and where we're at and still make something of it, because that's what we have. And I think it can be done. And now I think the reason why I'm saying and coming to not conclusion, but realizing how tight of a fit that is to get over there, I can understand maybe why God didn't want it to be this big old deal right away. Maybe he wants to see the faithful and draw them out, give them the blessings, and then the rest of the people that are, like, for example, let me just give you a scenario real quick. Let's say Nelson never gets it. Let's say he continues to, so here's what he's looking forward to. He's looking for somebody to sign a peace agreement. He's thinking this is the tribulation. He's thinking we're in the tribulation right now. He's looking for, I think that's what he thinks. He's looking for a peace agreement to be signed or something, or to start the tribulation. That's what it is. So he's looking for the agreement to start when it's just going to be in a covenant that needs to be made. But it's the confirming of the covenant that starts the tribulation. So once he realizes that he's duped people, duped himself, and that if he ever realizes that, which I don't think he will, that's why I've been on him, because you got to respond to what God's giving you, pal, or else then you're going to be knee deep into trouble, and you're not going to have enough time to spin it. then that's what I'm saying. He's setting everybody up. You don't want to listen to what I say? I'm going to set you up. This is serious business. You don't want to listen and tell what I've told? I'm not going to give you any more, and you're going to be in a worse situation down the road. You see what I'm saying? Now, I do, but again, that's why the dude met me, because I'm giving you an opportunity, pal. I'm the informant. I may not be the best of everything, but what I am saying is this is what you need, and this is how you're getting it. And you're wasting your time, and you may be giving information out, but that ain't what I said. It's what your mind thought, and you got to be careful about that. Now, I'm not mad at what he did. I'm trying to give him some credit for trying, but I don't care who you are. If you're still trying to poke your way and twist things and not really give the full truth, and you haven't woke up and you haven't acknowledged things, God's not going to give you any more. My hope and prayer is that they'll come back when this happens, and I'll be like, all right, man, here's the deal. Here's what we can do. And at that time, we'll show him some stuff, and his mind will be open, unless he continues on because of his pride and arrogance. And then he finds himself in a trap that I've only got a couple more years to make a decision that should have been made back here in my head. But that's what I see, because I'm 10 steps ahead and actually trying to reach out to the people that may be seeking. It doesn't change anything if they haven't built on what God's given them. You know?
Mhm.
So I just think we all met for a reason there. But again, I can't do what God's going to do for these people. I can only point them to what's happening and try to prepare ourselves. And that's what God's given. And I can rest at night knowing that I'm only as responsible as what God's given me, you know. But that doesn't keep me from trying and moving forward with what God's given me more of, you know. So you're kind of stuck in this situation where you're like, all right, we figured this out. Now we got this. But if God were to give it all to us at once, we wouldn't even know how to handle it, because it would be too much. But again, it's still a blessing knowing. You just got to do something with it at that point. And then you get the data, and then you figure out, okay, here's what we got. This is what we can do. This is what we can agree on. This makes sense. Done. Whatever that is. So anyway, I'm just working on some stuff, and it's taking me time. But anyway, that's what I got. I appreciate you guys coming out tonight.
Great.
I think we'll need to do some more evangelism stuff, look into certain things, and then there's might be weeks where I can get people in the school and write something. There might be other weeks where I'm like working on, you know, it just all depends on where my mind's at. You know what I mean?
I understand. And I'm going to keep on working on some of these people that have enrolled, and then follow up with them. And, you know, the ones that I know that are local, I can say, hey, you know, we got something going on Tuesday.
Mhm.
It's the ones that have already, you know,
Yeah.
got something going on Tuesday.
Well, I would say, what do you think about this next Tuesday? I think I need a chance to, well, I can do anything, but at the same, if you have somebody, let's do this.
Evangelism.
We can do the evangelism stuff, but if there's somebody that happens to come on, or that you've invited, or something that just happens to, or you've worked on, let me know and I'll change it. We need to have a default presentation.
True.
So that's how the first time I was like, you know, and then we figured out. So I'm thinking always have a backup plan. I just wish that if we had more stuff going on, I could probably do this on Thursdays too. But I think after so long with so many people, growing our groups and all these other things, the only thing that I can think of is this. When we figure out how to, I think we're going to need to work as a group on shifting our finances in some ways to, at least with me, I haven't lived life like everybody else. I'm in the process of living. So I'm looking at this as like, how am I going to move and do all these things? But I think within us, if we think about how we're going to transfer stuff with the knowledge that God's given us, I think there's a couple ways we can do it, or an idea. One is the information we have is powerful. So if we get in front of the right people, if we have something going on that we can show them that we're doing, they could be invested in what we have, maybe it's buying and selling goods or certain things. That's always going to go on. It's just going to look different or be a different system. But there's ways to attach people's investments to what we're doing, and we could work on that. It's future, but I have ideas about that. And that would help us get into Israel. Again, that's something that we need to think about too, is the steps of doing that. I saw that guy's video today, the lawyers, and was like, there's 3 ways to do it. But I also read about that residential like sponsor, like you're talking about, somebody that's over there. So that might be a little I don't know how you would find that person or how that would work, but within our group, we're going to have to put in some work and steps into getting us over there safely and securely. And just be smart about all that. I think we got a couple of years before we got to start thinking about it, but knowing in advance, and that may all change. There may be different laws that come up afterwards, but I do know this. The more God gives us, the more we see it. It's like it's getting clearer and clearer. And that's what I like to see myself, is when it gets clearer and clearer, the more we respond to what God's given us. That's how I know this is it. And it's like, then we just tell other people, I was here and now I'm here. You want to know how I got here? Here you go. You know, and if you want us to help you, I need to see consistency in this, and this, and we're not just going to bring on any, Tom, Dick, or Harry into this situation if you haven't shown, support or whatever it is that we can try to help you with. And I think there's ways we can work with each other to get small funds for us to live. I have a good feeling that we can, and be supportive to each other like a family. But I'll tell you about that later. But I'm into getting this information out, but I also want to be selective with who we work with, because I don't think setting up an LLC or a business over there is going to look very good, bringing too many people in unless they need to see what they're doing. We could easily make a group of like 10 people or whatever and have different positions for them and show it legit. Instead, because I just don't see very many people getting over there unless they choose a job of their own, or it might be easier to work with somebody that they already know, like us, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah, I understand.
So anyway, we'll figure all that out. Good luck on your surgery tomorrow.
Oh, thank you.
Hopefully that goes well. Let us know. And I don't know. Anything else?
Sure.
Chocolate ricotta cake and spumoni.
I've got to get, yes, Spumoni ice cream.
Okay.
The one restaurant we go to makes this chocolate ricotta cake. And I've seen some recipes, but I haven't made any yet. So I'm gonna have to give it a shot.
It's
Very smooth.
very smooth. It'll knock you out.
Well, if you like, ricotta cheese, it gives it that texture.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one of those things. And spumoni ice cream, it's an Italian treat, though. It just beats everything.
And gelato, it's cherry, pistachio, and chocolate, I believe. It's the
Yeah.
3 flavors,
It's like a gelato. Yeah.
Yeah.
like the Italian Neapolitan.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of my favorite things to eat dessert wise, is anything caramel and whipped cream together. Have you ever just ate caramel and whipped cream?
No,
That's basically straight.
We got that for him. Well,
I'm sure we could find something like that.
Yeah,
find
that I like peanut butter stuff too. Peanut butter, caramel, butterscotch.
Oh, that's odd for a person to like butterscotch. That's because that's an old flavor. It's not something you see every day now.
Yeah, it's kind of like caramel, but it's got a little bit of a different taste to it.
mm,
Oh, the other thing too, and then I'll let you guys go. I think, I'm not sure if you're watching the news today, but I think Trump got indicted again on the January 6th thing. So
pushing for that.
So this is what again, if he gets hit, he gets hit. But I think he can still run. for president, even with a conviction, or even with there. I think he can still run. So that's all he's trying to do is drag this out. I have a feeling that I've got a feeling that he'll run and he'll pardon himself from all these things if he wins. Like that's what I read an article about that, and I think you can.
I don't know if he can pardon himself. That would be
Mm.
odd.
But I think you can. Or what'll happen is this. Here's another thing that could happen if we think about this stuff. Even if he gets in, if he still has all that stuff looming, like they can't. I think he can still run through his presidency because he's president, even if he's convicted. And then when he's done, then he's got to face it again. I think, but that would make perfect sense. Is that like, hey, now's the day that you're done. Now the time to be judged. It's just interesting to see how all this is played out and understand some of these verses, because it's like, I do know this. If he gets elected again and he comes in, we've got to find the exit route, because to me, that's just pure representation of the United States, fits the description, and everything else about it's just too clear to me. Like everything that we're putting out, it's like clear as day.
I
And
know.
yeah.
You probably saw this, and I think Tam, if she's still on, she probably saw this about a week ago. Biden and two other nations made some kind of agreement, more of a verbal, but it was a showing, some kind of agreement to. I'm trying to remember all this. I knew I should have wrote this down about war.
About war?
Yeah, about war.
Hmm.
Is Tammy still here?
Yeah. She's asleep.
No, really.
Yeah, can you see her in the
No, I
I,
don't see her
I,
on
I
there.
don't see her.
she's asleep.
Wake her up.
Tammy.
Get up. Have a milkshake.
Tammy.
Oh, she's still-
Tammy. Yeah,
Hey,
she fell
Tammy.
asleep.
Hey, Tammy.
She fell,
Eat cheesecake. Come on. Get up. Get up.
she fell asleep.
Spaghetti and meatballs. No, seriously, there was some kind of agreement between three nations.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it was, as you would say, a confirmed agreement, not a so much as a written one.
Yeah.
And I thought, how odd is that? It was three nations. Anyway, I'll have to
Okay.
look into that. I'll have to look into that. If you want to see, do a little search on Biden, an agreement he made with two other nations in the last 10 days.
Okay.
Hopefully something will pop up.
Yeah. Let's see here. Biden agreement with the three nations.
Ah, there she is.
Oh, she's like,
There she goes.
Yeah, I'll have to do probably a better search because it's not coming up. But if you find it,
Yeah, it was just one of those things. I thought I was going to bring it to this meeting, and I thought nuts. I didn't write it down, and I thought it was just rather odd.
yeah. Well, Nelson also thinks that King Charles,
I know.
and I'm just thinking myself, like I don't think these people, because they can't see God's closed sealed message, they're seeing other agendas, and God's like, I'm sideswiping all this with the Iran war. Like it ain't gonna be able to, none of this is gonna work out. They're trying to get stuff done, but they can't even see it happening. That's what I see. I see God's agenda is so shattering and thwarts the purposes of the people. Checkmates. Like
True.
literally all the stuff that people are trying to get done, God's like, no, I already got this covered and I'm doing it this way. Then you come back to me and find out how it's what happens, and then everybody else just talks about what they want, like Nelson. And I mean, it sounds good because seeing all these people's agendas, you're putting their agendas together and you're going with that. You're not going with God's agenda. You're creating your own thing, and it's so close. Like you just switched, you just missed what was going on because it's a setup. Like you're missing the things, you're not very clear on what it is. So you're just generally talking about agendas and you're like, everything's going to stick. It's going to look like, well, yeah, you throw a bunch of agendas together that blow up on each other. It is going to look like you may have known something and said something was going to happen, but it wasn't very specific.
Like we talked about earlier, is that you either have God's word and you follow it, or you have sensationalism
Yeah.
and a bunch of different agendas thrown in together, which is all deception.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I'll look for that. Just let me know what you find, and we'll keep doing it. But I'd probably say come October, you got the Embargoes Act being done. So the EU they can either decide to snap back sanctions or do something. If they let it go, Iran's just going to keep doing so. I just think that we're trying to prepare for that in advance because something's going to blow this thing up, man. It's got to
I
be.
know.
It just can't keep going on. If it lasted another year, I would be like, why? What needed to happen this year unless there's something that we're missing? Because I'm not missing anything, I don't think, unless there's something I need to be doing but in all reality, I'm like,
Actually, it was one thing you've mentioned time and time again. Though it linger, it will happen.
Yeah. And I mean, those are great verses that we can have. I'm just thinking to myself, everything is just so spot on. And Richard, he's been posting all this stuff, some of the same
Sure.
stuff over
Yeah.
again, but it's like I just think there's so much more that's missing because, in my opinion, I'm not saying he didn't need to go farther. I'm just saying he just stopped and I'm not doing any more. Like I'm not like he has the information, but it's really not that specific. And I think he would get clearer if he would have just kept doing more stuff, in a different way. But again, I can't stop that, but I'm glad I'm away from that, for a little bit. So, but anyway,
Just for a little bit.
hopefully for a while. But anyway, I think everything's going to work itself out. But I will think that we're all need each other's help a little bit in some ways, and then just navigating through all this stuff. And I don't know. So one other thing that you could do, and then I'll be done after this, is the people that for example, like using this example, like if you were able to show them, hey, I'm doing this or this or this on the side. I also have this school. This is what we're doing. We can show it to you in your presentation. I think between me, you and Nick or anybody else, even though we are working jobs and staying busy and stuff, I think there's some ways we can show people our path of what we're going to try to do when this happens, or see our options and say, hey, we want you to see this. We want to show you this. And then if you show them something and something that's working and something that makes sense, that's the key difference, is you're actually showing them something that works. The reason why a lot of people bought into this Amazon seminar, and I'm using that as an example, not nothing that we need to do necessarily, but they showed you how it all worked. They gave you all the information, but they also showed you that it was tough to do on your own. If we can present presentations that show people that we know things, we're willing to help, but we all need to chip in on certain things, I think it can run better for people, as wouldn't say an organization, but it can be formulated better than just individually. Because I just don't see too many individuals that really are sincere, want to get over there, navigating on their own 100%. I see us having to take some lead and charge, be selective in who we talk to, and come up with something. But that's why I see presentations and partnering and things like that. What's the word? You got to be discerning, but it also may be needed at times,
Yes. I
don't know what that looks like.
One thing I was going to mention earlier, you were talking about people, courses, in progression, holding people accountable, yet working with them with a solution to overcome just certain little immediate goals, like how to get them from point A to point B instead of from point A to point M and then to Z,
Mhm.
um,
Yeah.
and asking them questions almost on every other day or every week. Just say, okay, did you get this done? And if not, uh, I can offer maybe a solution or two to that to help you get over that hump.
Mhm.
Just
Yeah.
an idea, just an idea.
Yeah, and it's so tough. Like I know these other people that have classes within Teachable for teach different things too. They actually have classroom settings where people come and visit you, and that would be kind of like these presentations, but there's so much information. It's like, where do you start and how do you get consistent people showing up? And I'm just like, can you break it down anymore? Or can we give it back like this? And I don't know. I just think once people start showing up and we can get more, like before, it's like I'm thinking about these things, but I kept getting scatterbrained because I didn't have all these things there for me to get good data. I was just imagining data. Once we start getting people on board, you can actually create systems that work because you have the people there in place. But
Mhm.
until you get those people trained, you don't have anything. And then you're relying on yourself. And then you're working 250 hours a week when you could be delegating all this stuff to people and giving them stuff to do and making things more simple for yourself and freeing you up more time. But if you don't have an entrepreneur spirit or mindset, you wouldn't understand that. You'd be corporate like old boy and wondering what's going on because you actually got to do something.
Hmm.
you
I
know,
don't think the old boy has put as many hours in as me.
I think he got hooked up. I mean, like we give him credit, but then at the same time, it's like, all right, here, no more pepperoni pizza for you.
Yeah,
So
I get that. I understand. We'll just divert it all to chocolate ricotta cake and spumoni.
hey, there you go. That's what it's all about. Yeah. Well, guys, thanks for coming on. We'll give it kind of a break or into evangelism next week and talk about some things, keep posting stuff, and then come up with some game plan because I think we're getting closer. And if we make it through this year, by God's grace, great. But I'd say get ready. So,
Yeah, I would agree.
so all right, guys. Well, I'll see
Thank
you
you.
guys next
You
time.
soon.
See you soon.
Bye.